fun begins.
How's it going?
Hello.
Well,
Greetings, young Jedi.
hello there.
Hey everyone, Hybrid Tour Reviews here, and today we're taking a look at the Star Wars The Black Series SM-33 as he appears in Skeleton Crew. Skeleton Crew is an amazing show. I still love everything about that show, and I do feel that adding SM-33 to the figures we already have probably completes about everything we need from the show. It might be cool to get another pirate or two, but let's be fair, Black Series collectors don't show up for stuff, and those would go right to Ollie's, so I kind of understand if there's any hesitation from Hasbro to do those. But this finishes our crew of core characters. It doesn't leave me, like, wanting anyone. I've been wanting SM-33 for that little shelf. So, without further ado, let's get into this review and see if the final member of the crew is just as good as all the other figures were. Let's go. And here's SM-33 in the packaging. He is in your Black Series Deluxe packaging, so it's a little bit wider, and in his case, it's also a smidge deeper than some of them end up being, just because of how he's a little hunched over. He's a big, bulky, sometimes tall, sometimes deep boy, so it works out. But there's a Black Series logo above a big window showing him and some accessories off nicely. You have your number 7, SM-33, Star Wars Skeleton Crew in yellow, warning 4+ Hasbro. This side of the box features some really cool artwork of him hunched over nice and menacingly, his name below. Over here features your wraparound window, your wraparound yellow stripe, and your Black Series logo. Around back, you have some art of him on the side, your Black Series logo once more, and then a bio of him in varying languages. Pause and read which language best applies to you. He's number 7 in the line, once more, a bunch of legal stuff, Hasbro, Disney, barcodes, more legal stuff, and a hanger tab. If you've seen one Black Series box, you've seen all of them. Without further ado, let's open them up. So here's SM-33 out of the packaging. Let's go ahead and start by taking a look at his accessories. He comes with a couple good ones. For starters, something that you may have been concerned about, I know I was, is, he's got a peg leg. So how's he going to balance with only one foot? Now, I'll say he does pretty well, but they did give us a nice little stand for him. It's a clear circle, maybe 1.5 inches across, with a peg on it. And if I were doing it, I would have made it peg into the peg leg, but they made it peg into the other foot. And there's no denying it definitely gives you more stability, but I will say that even without it, he does a decent job balancing. So, I mean, good job to Hasbro either way. Something that's going to be incredibly frustrating is, sometimes, you get into that debate with people. They're like, Black Series needs to have alternate hands. I don't think they need to. But when I make the argument, well, they've never had alternate hands. They referenced that one time in 2017 that Qui-Gon came with one alternate hand. And so therefore it has happened, and it has to start happening from now on. So now people are going to start saying they need to have stands. And when you say, well, 500 figures in, they finally gave SM-33 one, but that'll be the logic. So I'm excited. I'm pre-arguing with people. But standing him back up, the stand is a nice addition, but we're going to leave it off for the review unless he gets really tipsy. He comes with his 2 shields. These would pop out of his forearms in the show, and he would use them to, block shots in battle. They have some blaster shot effect going on there. They look really nice. They've got a little bit of copper paint here and some nice sculpted line work. On the back, you'll see that they have 2 opposing L-shaped tabs, and the way that these work is you pop off these plates on his forearms, and you can't swap them. You can't put them on the alternate on the other sides. This one will only go on this side, that one will only go on that side, but that works out really well. We'll get into the articulation segment later, but he doesn't have any swivel between the elbow and the forearm, and I do kind of wish that we did, because it's like, you bring it up to shield him, and it's kind of just leaning towards them a little bit. Kind of wish there's a little bit of a pivot in there, but it's not a ginormous deal breaker, and honestly, it's not how I'm going to have him on the shelf, but as far as just posability, it definitely would have been a welcome addition. And then, what's that, a mouse turd on my desk? No. That's a little mouse that would pop out of his eye. There's no paint on it, but it's a nice little teeny tiny sculpted, that's the butt, and that's the head. You can see there's some limbs on there. But yeah, that's our little mouse accessory. And the way you put that in, his head actually pops apart. There's a peg in there. There's actually some nice little sculpted wiring. No paint, but top of the head is tied into these wires over here. But there's a little bit of a channel there, and it pokes through the hole in his eye. And so you could not put him in, and that makes it look like the empty eye socket. Or you gotta spin him around, make sure his head is poking out. and then his body just kind of hangs out in that cavity in there. Let's see if I can do that.
On camera. Come on, you know you want to.
There we go. Got the head pushed in there, and it's nice and secure. We'll go ahead and put the dome back on. The top of the dome does pop off pretty easily anytime he's tipped over on my shelf. Nope, there we go, popping off that forearm shield too. So some of these pieces are a little loose, not gonna lie. Anytime that he tips back on my desk, see it pops that open. I pushed the mouse in there pretty snug. If you don't, you know, there would always be that fear of the mouse going flying. But I think he'll be okay. I think it'll be all right. But yeah, that's an accessory that you're going to lose. I'm calling it now. When you buy this guy loose, you know, secondhand in the future on eBay, make sure he has that. Otherwise, make sure you get a good deal. But otherwise, here he is, all put together, mouse and eye. And I got to say, he looks really, really good. There's some things that are a little less than perfect, but I'm not going to like super gripe. I think it's pretty good for what he is. He has a nice silver color to him, but it's actually like silver colored plastic. I don't mind that so much, but it just, certain lighting does give him a little bit of a plastic look rather than a metal look, but other lighting, he looks a little bit better. Not really going to knock it. He has some beautiful weathering, you know, just little, patches, paint and oxidization going on. He's got some copper going on the joints and the, inside of this forearm, but not that forearm. And, just some really, really good looking stuff going on here. His character has those hollow joints in the show that a lot of the Disney droids have, so they put clear pegs on here. I've seen some complaints on that, but like, what can you do? You have to have a peg there. Like, if you make it solid, you're going to bitch that it's not right, you know? So, it's like, you know, a lose-lose for Hasbro, but got some nice green going on there above the peg leg, and just some really, really amazing sculpting, especially on that face. I mean, he just, you know, looks right in at you, you know, and I mean, that's beautiful. I mean, this is an amazing recreation of SM-33, but, I just love everything about this. He's got those hoses coming out the back of his head. They kind of poured in there. Around back, you, like any other Black Series, you kind of just don't have any of that weathering going on. He's very clean on the back. Some sculpted in texture, though. I mean, there's a texture all over him that makes him feel like oxidized, pitted, you know, plating. And that's all right. But yeah, it's pretty good. I do like how he's turned out here. Now, as far as figures go, he has some gimmick to him, I gotta say. He does some really cool stuff. You remember in the show, you know, when he's getting ready for battle, he would grow? He has expandable joints, and it's really, really cool. So, let's go ahead and pull him apart. He said, pull him apart. So, let me show you everywhere that this figure expands. There's some really neat engineering here. So, he pulls apart at the elbow and the bicep. There's a rectangular kind of peg in there. And then his hand pulls out of the forearm, and you get a nice post there. And happens on both sides. And maybe what I'll do is I'll leave this side short. That way you see like what has and hasn't grown. You can extend him at the waist, and that adds a bunch of height to our guy here. And then there's a little bit of a pop to it, but he expands at the bottom of the thigh, the top of the knee, and then his feet pull out, you know, in that case, the peg leg. And as you see, it adds, you know, almost an inch of height to him. And the arms, you know, are maybe like a half inch, you know, higher. So, I mean, it's really a feat of engineering here. And of course, they can only grow it, you know, as high up as they can hollow out the, you know, joint above it. But you can get him pretty gangly tall going on. And actually, when he's up like that, unless you're standing him straight up, he is a little spindly. So maybe this is really where that stand. Let's bring that stand in. Like I said, we won't use it unless we need it. But all extended, he gets a little bit spindly. So come on, work with me, SM-33. Come on, there we go. Got him stood up. Even just a smidge out of frame. But, I mean, he is tall. And actually, for reference, for height, extended, well, it's off camera, but he's 7.5 inches tall. And that is, I mean, that's pretty dang tall for a Black Series. Let's go ahead and do a size comparison. Here he is next to Captain Jod and Captain Brutus, and then let's go ahead and bring in all the kids, of course. And I'm actually going to recollapse him here in a minute and show you what he looks like, you know, all collapsed up next to the kids. You know, maybe we'll put Brutus behind a little bit. But I want to get all the kids in here. It's a kids show. It's all about the kids. There we go. So there he is, all extended with everyone. And here's the whole gang brought together. When you get him down to a normal height and you pose him a little bit like how he normally is, he's about 6 inches tall. So yeah, you do get a pretty good amount of growth when you extend him out like that. It's really cool how that works out. So all in all, I do really like the feature there with the growth. Future Hybrid here. How did I get that far into the review and not give you an articulation segment? I apologize for breaking up my formula here. I'm tired tonight. But he has some pretty good articulation. You definitely add some with that expanding feature, but he features a double ball neck. There's a joint at the top and the bottom of the neck. Now, he does have, I mean, it's just at the front instead of at the top of his torso. So, I mean, like, you know, it does hinder your up. That's about all that you get. You can get him looking that far down, kind of starts to pull on those hoses a little bit. And of course, side to side, and give him all that attitude with some tilt. His arms come up to a T-pose. The shoulder pads are on the ring and the pin there, like you kind of see a lot. So it's, you know, completely out of the way. There's a butterfly joint in there. Always love to see a butterfly joint. 360-degree shoulders. We're just going to leave that off. And then he features single jointed elbows that go to 90. He swivels at the top of the bicep. You don't swivel at that pin that comes out because it's actually rectangle shaped right there. And then you get a swivel at the wrist, and both of them hinge in and out. As I mentioned, probably would have been nice to get one, you know, somewhere in the forearm at the elbow, just for those shield pieces, but it's not the end of the world. It just definitely would have improved it some. So you have a mid-torso ball joint, which is also, again, where it extends, allows you to crunch them that far forward, that far back, side to side, of course. And there's some side to, or like some pivot side to side in there. He features ball jointed hips that are kind of like angled in there, and that's just accurate to the show. He can spread his legs that far apart, and of course go really far forward, a little bit back, I mean all the way back really. You know, he can pivot on the ball joint. You actually see a lot of the ball joint gets exposed. There's no thigh swivel, so I love that. There's a rotation at the pin where it extends above the knee, and that just replaces any need for thigh swivel. And then there's nothing below the knee on the peg leg, but no pivot below the knee on the not peg leg either. It kind of looks, there's a seam in there. It looks like it should turn, but I ain't breaking mine. And then, of course, there's tons of articulation on the peg leg, but the normal leg goes, you know, back, forward, and then there's a sideways facing hinge in there, so it's not a forward facing pin, but you get all the normal range that you would get. So really do like how that turned out, and he's a very well articulated figure. So at the end of the day, what do I think of the Deluxe SM-33? I really like it. Don't get me wrong, there's some fiddly things. They could have added that forearm swivel to make those shields a little more usable. You know, I mean, there's definitely some imperfection for sure, but he's a really well-made figure, and you can tell just a ton of engineering went into making him all expandable like that, and I do really like that the features here. It's a play feature, but it doesn't ruin the figure. You know, people talk about Black Series needing to be, you know, entirely show, and while I do generally agree, if you can put a play feature in there that's not a big dart shooting missile launcher that's 5 times the size of the weapon, you know, if you can make the joints expand, sure, I'll go for it, as long as it looks good. And this does look good. They do a really good job of making him look, you know, exactly how he's supposed to look, and I do really like how he turned out. I think he's a fine addition to the Skeleton Crew shelf, and I'm just super happy to finally have SM-33 in the collection. I was able to get mine. I pre-ordered on Amazon the day they went up, and they had the price messed up, and it was $25 instead of $35. But do I recommend him even at $35? I do. I gotta say I do. It's one, I always buy the deluxes at full price anyway, because there has to be one person out there that supports the line, and I guess it's gonna be me. But I do recommend picking him up. I think that he's worth full price. Of course, he's a deluxe, and Black Series collectors never show up for anything, so wait 6 months and you'll find him on sale too. Can't say I blame you. Can't say I remember no ad neither. But with that said, thank you for watching. It means a lot that you did. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that end of video stuff. You know the drill. I'm going to go work on something else now. So until then, may the force be with each and every one of you, and goodbye.